I'm John Dass, the Director of Dedicated Accident Solicitors. I'm recognised by the Association of Personal Injury Lawyers as being a National Asbestos Disease Specialist, and I'm also a mesothelioma patron to the British Lung Foundation. Lionel Barton was exposed to asbestos whilst he worked as a fitter for 40 years at British Rail at the Litchurch Works in Derby. In his role as a fitter, he was involved in the repairing and remodelling of diesel vehicles, and those diesel vehicles were insulated with blue asbestos. However, unfortunately, this got in the way of Mr. Barton's work as a fitter, and he was required to scrape the blue asbestos from the external parts of the diesel vehicles, which resulted in the asbestos being released into the atmosphere. Lionel Barton developed mesothelioma, which is a highly aggressive form of lung cancer which is associated with being exposed to asbestos. Within a number of weeks of Mr. Barton instructing us, we were able to obtain on his behalf an interim payment which enabled him to buy a new bed, which made life more comfortable for him. Mr. Barton's close friend and carer informed me that she was of the opinion that Mr. Barton had unfinished business and that he held on to life until such time as justice has been served on his behalf by obtaining settlement. And very sadly, he passed away 2 days after we were able to achieve settlement on his behalf.
Mr. Barton was exposed to asbestos when he was working for British Rail back in the 50s. There was very little known about asbestos back then, but it was beginning to be shown on the television, and they were aware that there were problems, even though there was a lot of asbestos at the works at the time. But the management chose to ignore the concerns of the workers. Mr. Barton suffered from mesothelioma and wasn't given any protective equipment by his employers because at that time protective clothing and equipment was just not the norm, whereas now of course you would be kitted out with full PPE. Mr. Barton was quite surprised because he felt that although he knew of the dangers at the time, he thought that because he'd managed to reach the grand old age of 89 that he had actually managed to avoid getting the disease, whereas a lot of his colleagues had previously died at quite a young age. It made him very breathless, which then made he had no energy. He couldn't do his normal daily activities. And I did notice a rapid deterioration of his health. He was a very active person, walked, did a lot of gardening, but he couldn't even walk across the room without being out of breath. The team of nurses gave us an information pack about the disease, which of course neither of us were particularly aware of. We'd heard of lung cancer and asbestosis, but not this particular form of lung cancer. And we were given a pack of which there was information about the solicitors that dealt with accident claims. And because dedicated accident solicitors were in Derby, we chose them. Dedicated accident solicitors were very approachable, they were very helpful. Mr. Barton was very pleased when the case was won. It was one of the things that was keeping him alive because he was hoping that he would get his compensation, although sadly he passed very soon afterwards. John Dass was very helpful in the first instance. He came and he explained everything about the process of what would happen, what needed to happen, all the forms that needed filling and signing. He was very calm, was very knowledgeable and understood exactly what we needed. If you are in a similar position or know somebody that is, I would not hesitate in recommending John Dass at Dedicated Accident Solicitors.